Almost ready. It's too many platforms all at once. Let's get this going. One sec. And I want to make sure that I can see LinkedIn messages. Sometimes they don't come through in the chat, and I don't like leaving people hanging there. So we'll get that pulled up in just a moment. Cool. And I want to get my newsletter ready because I'm going to be going through some topics from that as well. So I'll get that primed. So if you're getting onto the stream, if you're watching this and it's recorded, the topic today is going to be AI for software developers. Yep, I see. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I do see the LinkedIn messages. That's perfect. And hey, Steve, good morning to you. It's evening here. Good to see you. So let me get one more sec here. I'm going to put the link to my newsletter if you want to read along for the topics. Again, no pressure or anything like that. It's just going to be the same topics. And I'm going to try to do a little, there's not going to be like live coding in the sense where I'm like teaching people how to code, but we are going to talk about AI for developers, right? So I want to be able to go through a little bit of code as well, just to show people, like if you're not using it, what you can be using it for, because I think that's super important. It's kind of, you know, one of the goals of the article itself was to be able to talk through some of that stuff. So if you're new to the live streams that I do, it's Monday night for me, so I will refer to it as the Monday night live streams. If you're new to this type of thing, I do encourage you to be asking questions and stuff like that. I will be watching the chat as I'm blabbing away here, so I would rather spend my time answering your questions than me just blabbing at you. I think it's the whole point is like I can go record YouTube videos and stuff like that. Folks can go watch them, but this is a chance where we can talk and engage and stuff like that. So feel free to jump in the chat. Like I said, I will be watching. You can ask questions. You can offer your own perspective. I'll try to call stuff out as I'm going. If I do end up showing my screen and stuff and the text is too small, anything like that, just, you know, shout at me in the chat. Like I said, I'll be watching. So if that sounds good, then I'll get into it. And hello on Instagram. I can see your comments. So I will say hello back so you know I'm here. Awesome stuff. Okay, so I had a couple of different ways that I wanted to look at AI for software developers. And to have you used, I have not used Plandex, no. If you want to kind of describe what Plandex is, I'd love to hear more about it. So the framing for all of this is, I mean, for software developers, I think there's a lot of uncertainty going on, right? So of course we have a pretty challenging job market right now for folks that are getting into industry, people that have been laid off. You know, I don't want to kind of focus this talk on that. I just want to kind of frame up that there is a lot of uncertainty. Then we layer in things like AI, right? There was, I mean, a huge scare, I guess, for lots of people. Some people maybe not such a big scare, but this idea of like Devon AI and AI coming to take all the programmer jobs because we can just use AI to code everything. The CEO of NVIDIA saying, I don't know what the date was. I think he said like in 5 years or something, we won't need software engineers kind of thing. Like, I think people are hearing this kind of stuff and having a lot of uncertainty. And I think it's fair that they do, right? Like if you're hearing this stuff and you're new to industry especially, it's going to be like, oh crap, like what am I getting myself into here? Am I wasting my time? Should I do something else? You know, did I focus all of my time and energy into the wrong field? Like I get it. But my stance on this kind of thing is just like any technology, right? I would say if you're the kind of person that is very complacent and you do not want to kind of get on board with the technology, you're not willing to have like a growth mindset and look at things and kind of just like get outside of your comfort zone, then I would say regardless of AI, it will be some other technology that probably gets you to a point where you might feel like you're obsolete. Okay, so it's not AI specific, in my opinion, that's going to be the thing that causes you to go out of your job. Like it will be some type of technology change, some type of shift in whatever landscape for your role that you're in that will eventually obsolete you if you're not willing to kind of grow with how things are going. So AI definitely puts a pretty big impact on that, right? Because it affects many industries. And of course, people like software engineers can be affected by that kind of thing. So the goal of this talk is to look at ways that we can leverage AI. And I'm going to talk about some things that you shouldn't do, in my opinion. And in my article, they are emphasized heavily. I think 3 or 4 times I repeat the same thing, like, don't do this. But the goal here is to show you things that you can do, things that will hopefully help you leverage AI. And that way you are kind of in this position that as AI trends and stuff are moving forward, you should be able to jump on board and leverage them. So this is not going to be about building things with AI as the foundation, as in we're not going to go build a web app together and then like jam AI into it. Like, that's not the point. It's more from a productivity perspective. So just from a framing. That sound good? Let me know. I'm just checking out the chat here. So Plandex is a CLI LLM augmented project making thingy. Awesome. I was mucking around with it last night. It was too easily stepping on landmines, but it was kind of neat. Preview and Devon type tools. Okay, cool. Yeah, like, I mean, there's going to be a ton of this stuff, right? Like tons of things to kind of kickstart things based on AI. So no, I have not heard of this one though. So for folks that are reading through the chat or just listening to what I'm saying, Plandex maybe is something interesting to look at. Hey, Xcoding on Twitch, thanks for joining. Definitely seen you around. Happy that you're back. Cool. Okay, so the next part of the article is kind of going through some different things that we can start to do. And I wanted to start with some junior developer type things because I thought, like, from my own experience, having people reach out to me or things that I've read where people are saying, hey, like, I'm trying to get into the industry. People keep saying, go build projects is the best way to learn. But like, I don't know what to go build, right? This is a very common thing. I've done a shout out for John Cricket on these live streams a few times, but John Cricket has codingchallenges.fyi. I will put that into the chat as well if you're not familiar. FYI. Sorry, I don't know if the chat is going to every platform, so I apologize, but it's codingchallenges.fyi. John Cricket has an awesome newsletter, and it's focused on basically just building things. So he'll have a different thing that you can go build. It's not constrained to any programming language, but it's a great example of like, hey, just go try building something. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's probably not going to be super easy, but that's the whole point. You can chip away at it. You can try different things out. It's just something to go practice, right? You're not going to finish one of those projects and say, hey, I can go sell it for $1 million. Like, that's not the goal. The goal is to learn. So one of the things that I thought, I wrote a blog article about this last year at some point, maybe almost a year ago now, about project ideas, right? So instead of, and I'm not saying don't go look at John's newsletter, I absolutely think you should check it out. But if you're always kind of feeling like, hey, I don't know what's a good fit, or even if you had some examples from, say, coding challenges, how can we refine that? How can we see like what some next steps are? So what I'm going to do, and I'm not a great prompt engineer, if I can even use that phrase. I'm going to go over to ChatGPT and I'll share my screen in just a second once I'm in there. And what we're going to do is look at prompting ChatGPT to come up with some ideas that could be useful for projects. And full disclaimer, I haven't actually tried this before, but I know that if you're good at prompting, I guarantee you could get some results that would be helpful for you. So in one moment here, I'm just going to get my screen shared. I just want to make sure I got some stuff out of the way. Sorry, one of my windows doesn't have a minimize bar, which is super annoying. There we go. It was a dialogue that was pulled up. So, okay, get my screen shared over here. Give me 1 sec. I will disappear for a moment, and then I will come right back, I promise. And here I am. Cool. So you can see I'm in ChatGPT here. But something that we could go do is think about the skills that you have or the skills that you want to go after. Sorry, on Instagram, it's cutting out a lot of the feed. So I guess it's most of what's in ChatGPT, but I think other platforms you're probably seeing the whole window. But you could say to ChatGPT something like, I'm a new software developer. I'm looking for a good project. And here's, in my opinion, something you're going to want to focus on is like what the goal of your project is. Because if you're not framing this thing up, if you're not framing this the right way, it might think that you're trying, like, is it a business? Like, what are you trying to do here, right? But I want to remind people the goal here is learning. So I'm looking for a good project to learn some basic programming skills. And where you might need to kind of deviate on this is some people will say, like, hey, I know that I want to try building some websites. I want to build with web tech. Other people might say, no, like mobile apps for sure, or I want to go build games, whatever it happens to be, right? You might know the things you want to do. You might know the languages or the tech stacks, but some people won't know any of that. Some people will know all of it. So this is where you get inventive. And it's going to be hard to make this really generic, right? But let's pick something and kind of roll with it. One challenge from, so Xcoding was looking at coding challenges. So one challenge from that newsletter is build your own shell. So he said, done that. Awesome. Yeah, there's lots of really cool ones that John Cricket has. So I do recommend you check it out. Okay, so looking for a good project to learn some basic programming skills. I'd like to focus on web development. Again, tune this for whatever you'd like, right? I think JavaScript or TypeScript would be good to use. Again, you might not know that. You might even ask ChatGPT like to suggest a language to use. Xcoding, I think you can post links in the chat. I'm okay if you do it. I think they will work. You can try it out. So like the part that I'm getting at here that I have highlighted is like, these are details you either might want to provide or you might want to ask. Okay, so that's up to you. And obviously, like I said, I'm not a good prompt engineer here, but you can play around with this to get different results. And we might try to tune this in our conversation with ChatGPT here. So I don't know what popular frameworks are. And something to think about when we go ask ChatGPT to go suggest popular frameworks is we want to figure, and this is up to you, but if you're, say you're considering that you want to be employable, right? I want to go make a project that's going to teach me some employable skills and frameworks. You can ask ChatGPT for that kind of thing, but because of the information it has and the time frame, if you're thinking about this, you might say, well, I want the most recent thing, right? It might not know. So you might want to go do a search on the side and give ChatGPT that information like, hey, these are the top 3 frameworks I'm seeing. But the point I'm getting at here is that you can start to combine your own little bit of research, which I recommend you do, of course, and you can leverage ChatGPT to get creative. So I don't know what popular frameworks are. I'm not going to feed this thing any extra information. We'll kind of see what it comes up with. But I would like to make sure they align with what recruiters at tech companies are looking for. Please recommend, let's start with 3 project ideas for me to try building for my beginner. And we'll give that a shot. It's just something to start with, right? It's not going to be perfect. I can guarantee it. And we'll kind of let this spit out what it has to say, and we're going to go through it briefly because I have other things in the newsletter that I want to go through, but I think this is important to kind of go through. So it's still writing out some stuff here. Cool. So it's all done. I'm going to go back up to the top, and we're going to read through what we got going on. A personal blog website is a pretty common one, so I have seen this, and if I scroll quickly, yeah, all 3 of these are very popular things. And I'm not surprised that ChatGPT came up with 3 things that I see all of the time. But what it did that's really cool, and you can tune this again to your liking, but it gave some recommendations about tech stacks and languages. And you can tune this again. Like if you were like, no, I don't want to use Node.js, which I see here, right? Like maybe from your own research, you wanted to go learn a different technology. You can go tell it, here's what I want to use. Like I said, you can go refine this. So First one says a personal blog website. You're going to get some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I think this is a pretty popular combo for people, right? Especially HTML and CSS. A lot of people starting in front end work, they basically focus on HTML and CSS for a long time, and then they try to get some scripting and stuff going, because these two things, this is not programming. I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade, but these things are not programming. But as soon as you get into some scripting and stuff like that and have some logic, then you are starting to write some programs. So nothing wrong with starting here, right? But as soon as you start getting some scripting and stuff in place, then you are building logic and writing programs. So it's a nice stepping stone for sure. It calls out the frameworks and libraries. In this case, it's saying, hey, you might want to check out using React for the front end of this, so you can use JavaScript or TypeScript. And if you were brand new and you're like, what are these things, right? Like, what's React? What is JavaScript or TypeScript? They seem like similar things based on their names. You can either go ask ChatGPT for more information or start searching online, right? So the goal of using ChatGPT this way, I'm going to keep repeating myself because I think it's important to hear, is not to go, ChatGPT said so, I guess I better go off and just do whatever it says. The goal is to say, hey, ChatGPT gave me a starting point. Either you don't know about it and you should go do a bit of research before continuing on, or you feel that you know better and you want to tell ChatGPT and see how it might tune things a little bit differently. So same thing with Node.js. You might read that and say, like, what's the JS part? Maybe that's JavaScript, right? It says with Express, well, what the heck is Express? So you can go look into this kind of stuff. Maybe the phrase or word database is familiar to you, but you're like, I don't know what Mongo is, right? Using Mongoose for object modeling. Very nice. So again, you might say, hey, this actually seems like a cool one. And it's going to talk about the skills, or which is even better, give you some guidance. But you might say, this is actually pretty cool. I did a little bit of reading. I understand these things. But you know what? I don't think MongoDB, from what I was reading about, everyone seems to be talking about Postgres. I don't know what Postgres is, but everyone's talking about it. So maybe Postgres would be better for me. And you could maybe go take this and say, hey, ChatGPT, based on option 1, could we try, like, what would happen if we wanted to use Postgres instead of MongoDB? Let's actually try that, right? I'm not going to go, maybe I won't go through all these just because it's a little bit overkill, but we can say, hey, I won't say hey to ChatGPT. It's too casual. Based on option 1, I'd like to try this project, but use Postgres instead. MongoDB. What will this change or the design and goals? Right. So you can, if you don't know, you can go ask it, right? And we'll see. It's writing a lot of stuff. Again, I'm not going to go through all the details because I just want to show you guys some of like the patterns and stuff that you can play around with. This is a huge set of results. Wow. Okay. Starting from the top. So instead of using a NoSQL database like MongoDB, you'll use a relational database. And again, if you're brand new, you might go, oh man, what am I getting myself into here? Like, what are these things? So you can keep asking ChatGPT to explain these things, or you can start searching on the internet, because now you might say, well, it's one or the other. Well, which one do I want? What's better, right? It's a comparison. So automatically we're, what's better? And it's not that there's going to be one that's better or worse. They're just different things. So you might go do some research on this, and maybe you'll want to ask ChatGPT, like, maybe you can't find a good answer online about what's a better option for, I'm going to use air quotes here, like employability, like what are people looking for when they're trying to hire. So you can try asking and get it to explain more. But the point in all of this is just ideation. And I want to be clear about that. It's not to say, here's the absolute best answer or anything like that. This is just to get you off your butt, starting to code something. And one last thing I'll say about this is, if we go back up to these projects, if you were like, this sounds cool, but like that just seems overwhelming. Like that's just too much stuff going on. Like, can I start smaller? One thing you could do is say, based on the first, can we scope it down to be a smaller? So I'm just telling ChatGPT, hey, that sounds cool, but like it might be a little bit too much. Now, it is going ahead and giving you even more stuff, and it's even writing code. When that's going to be a little bit more that we'll get into in a moment. Um, Now, I might as well mention it because it is spitting out so much code here, but when you're doing this kind of thing with ChatGPT, I want to caution you that the goal in doing all of this is not to have AI go do all of the work for you when you're trying to learn stuff. And I want to be very clear about that because it's the exact same. Let's pretend you have a sibling, okay? So you want to get into software engineering and you have a sibling that is, I don't know, let's assume they're older or else this is super unfair, but they're 15 years older than you and they've been a software engineer for 15 years. And your goal was to learn software engineering, right? And you're like, I want to go build stuff, but hey, like, hey, sibling, you got 15 years. Can you just build it for me? And they're like, sure. And they do it in a day and they give it to you. Like, what did you get out of that? You got a personal website based on this project, right? But you didn't learn anything from it. So I want to caution you, like it's okay to take code snippets and stuff from ChatGPT or Stack Overflow and stuff like that, but you do want to make sure you're spending time getting stuck, figuring things out, because that's what you need to do to learn. And I can't overstate that. You don't just want the answers, even though it might seem like you do. You don't just want the answers. You actually want to spend time getting stuck, learning, moving through stuff. It's actually, so I mean this totally seriously. It's something that I have to coach even other engineers that are in industry. So I'll give you a situation. If we have a team of engineers, right, there's going to be people that are more junior up through maybe like, principal level. So you have a whole range. And say we bring on a new person to the team that's very junior. When someone is going to help that junior because that person might be asking for help, they're getting stuck on things, I have to coach people to say, don't just give that person the answers. Because when you just give people answers for everything they do, they're not learning how to problem solve. And it's not their fault, they will just keep coming to you for answers. You're giving them the shortcut, right? If this person always answers for me, why would I do anything else? They're basically doing my job. So there's a saying like teach a man to fish and like he'll fish for life kind of thing. Like you want to get people to learn. And that's why I think it's important if you're going to use AI for kickstarting your projects and stuff. If your goal is to learn, you don't want to say, hey, ChatGPT, go code the next file for me. Spits it out, copy paste. Hey, ChatGPT, go code the next file for me. Copy paste. You just won't learn. If you're getting stuck on parts of it, absolutely go ask it for help. And it's fine if you're copying and pasting the code, but you need to spend the time going through it and learning it. So I'll shut up about that. I wanted to make that point clear. Let's go back to the article. I'm probably going to share my face again. Refactoring is another one. So I'll jump to this section. I just want to have a quick peek at what I wrote here, and then I will go back to showing my face. Maybe actually Visual Studio, we can look at some other code. Yeah, let me go back to my face. Disappearing act. Every time I live stream, I keep telling people I'm going to fix this, and then I don't. But here I am. So on refactoring, when we're talking about sort of productivity for software engineers, something to think about is that we can basically speed up doing mundane tasks, and refactoring, depending on what you're doing, can be a very mundane task, right? Some things that I'll walk through in just a moment. I've had situations where I've written out, say, I do this a lot. A lot of my career is prototyping code, and I know the patterns that I want to use in a good design, but sometimes I'm just trying to do it fast. And it's a total acknowledgement. I'm just doing it fast. I want to see if I can get a result. I'll come back, clean it up, whatever. Maybe I'll just blow the code away because it's not what I want to do. But the point is that there's going to be situations where I go, okay, like this was actually mostly working. I don't want to fully rewrite it. I just want to clean it up. And a good example, if you're not a C# programmer, I'll explain it briefly. There is something called LINQ, LINQ, in C#. Some people love using it, others hate using it. Depending on how and where you're using it, it can be a bit less performant. So sometimes I have code that I have left around that is LINQ, and it's on a hot path of my code, and I go, you know what? I should probably change this over to not use LINQ. I can probably squeeze a little bit of performance out of it. If I had to sit here and go refactor it myself, it's going to be it's like just wasted time. Like the benefit I'm going to get is pretty minimal, especially in my own like hobby projects. But I can just ask Copilot, hey, go refactor this. Convert the LINQ to loops, and it will do it. And then we can ask it for performance optimization. So I'm going to jump over to Visual Studio. We'll see if we can do this in a quick example. I just want to double check the other sections and do a time check because I probably blabbed a little bit too much. Writing code faster. Maybe I'll combine a couple of these sections, but because I do want to talk about rubber ducking as one of the last sections. And if you heard that phrase and you're like, what the heck is Nick talking about? Stay tuned because it's a real thing. But let me get over to Visual Studio in 1 second. I just got to get, this is the program that was pulling up a dialogue and screwing up my whole stream. I couldn't close it, or I couldn't minimize it rather. Okay, let's go back to full screen. There's my face. That was quicker this time. Okay, so I'm in Visual Studio. I'm going to make a new project. It's not going to matter what it is. I just need somewhere that I can go write code and have Copilot be active for me. Calling it Copilot Coding. I don't know what we're going to build yet. Probably nothing fancy. Okay. So this isn't an advertisement for Copilot. No one's paying me to say this. That would be nice if they did. Also not a Pepsi ad, but if someone wanted to pay me from Pepsi, that'd be cool too. But Copilot has dramatically changed how I program. And if you watch my videos or even some of my live streams when I'm coding, you'll see how good it ends up getting. And it's not perfect. There's a lot of room to go still. But it learns from the patterns that you are coding. And if you have things that you're kind of repeating in different files in terms of the shape of your code, not exactly, copy pasting code, it really picks up on the style and what you're trying to do. So I want to think of an example here. If we had, I wanted to show like a LINQ thing that we can go refactor. And actually, maybe I will just go open something instead of doing it from scratch. Okay, we had a live stream the other day where we were refactoring some code. Let's see if we can go look at this. So what this code is doing is not super important. But we could say, sorry, I'm scrolling through here to find a good example. This one also might not be good. I need something a little juicier. Downloading videos. We did this one. This was also another live stream. Bunch of commented code. This one's also reasonably refactored. I should have prepared better for this, right? Let's go find another one. Let's go find a gross one that I haven't played around with recently. Okay. Where is a good one? By the way, if folks have questions in the chat, please go ahead. Like I said, this is for you guys. Extension methods. This one's enumerables. I don't know how old this is. Okay. I also don't like this one. I'm just going to go back. We're going to build something together, and we'll do it quick. So I'm going to do... We're going to make something that's going to go download something from the internet. So we'll get an HTTP client. But see already, if you're not used to using Copilot, you can see like basically it's the prediction that's coming up on my screen, right? If I press tab now, it added that line. I'm just pressing tab as it comes up. Okay, so it just wrote a little program for us by pressing tab. I don't think that this is going to do anything. In fact, it probably throws an error because GitHub probably needs... Yeah, there we go. Request forbidden by administrative rules. So it literally wrote a little program for us that was trying to go to GitHub's API and go fetch some data for us. So what's something we could do here? Maybe I can go to my own website. And then, I don't know, we could go run a regex on some stuff. So I'm going to combine some different sections of my article. This one's also going to show writing code and leveraging AI, in this case, Copilot, to do it. So I could say, use a regex. I'm putting it in a comment just so this is like a way that you can kind of prompt Copilot. And it's like, it's even just kind of coming up with what I might want to say. So I'll press tab. There we go. Thank you, Copilot. I can't find... Okay, so there's a program. Now, you'll see that I'm about to go press play. I have no idea if this works, and there's other things that we might want to be asking in just a moment. But it literally just wrote us a program to go find all the links on my homepage. And nothing. Right? So did it work? What's going on? This is why when you're, and this is kind of one of the lessons in the article, is can we just trust anything that it's outputting? Right? It made it seem so simple. It made it seem so simple. I just kept pressing tab. It kind of even told us the program it wanted to go right, but now it's not working. Why? So it's up to you to go debug. And you might know, if you're really familiar with regular expressions, you might go, oh man, like that regex, that ain't going to work. So just to double check, we did get content coming back, right? So that's the HTML for my website. So definitely some links. Yuri's saying, no, it kills me when it autofills incorrectly. I wish I could show you. It's not doing it on this computer, at least not yet. I have a bug in my Copilot setup that when it has to put parameters on new lines, it indents it with a full tab. So if it auto-completes something and it will show me it properly, but if I have to do parameter passing and it passes in, say, 5 parameters, it indents each one a whole tab and it keeps going deeper and deeper. And I've had it auto-complete stuff where I'm basically just trimming away code for like 30 seconds trying to format it. It's exactly what I wanted, but I'm just trimming away. Okay, so this regex isn't working for us. And why? Maybe it's because we got too much going on here with the /a. Don't know. But we'd have to go ask Copilot. We could do it a different way. Oh, did that not work? Do I not have Copilot chat on this one? No. Maybe I haven't had to do this. So for the record, I use 2 computers when I'm programming. I switched over to my gaming machine because my microphone was not working. Copilot chat? I don't want to restart Visual Studio. Okay, here's what we can do. We're going to flip-flop. So usually if you're using Copilot directly in your IDE, which I should have tested before I did this, there's Copilot chat as well, and you can basically highlight text, and there's usually a menu for it or a shortcut on your keyboard, and you can basically prompt Copilot in a little chat to say, hey, I'd like you to go refactor this. So what I can do instead is I'm going to bring back over this window. We'll go to ChatGPT and we'll say the regular expression of this code is not finding so we can go tell it something's wrong. And it goes into a lot of detail. Right mouse click. Yeah, I don't think that I have the extension installed. Just to quickly show you, I don't think it's in here. I do have the extension installed on my other computer, but I don't have Copilot chat here, and I don't want to restart Visual Studio. Okay, so it's gone ahead and it's given us another regular expression. Now, ChatGPT is generally, in my experience, very good at regular expressions, but regular expressions, no one's good at them. No one's good at regular expressions. They're way too complicated. Like, look at this thing. Look at this disgusting regular expression. Right? It's just awful. Now, I'm going to blindly take this. I don't recommend you do that, but I'm going to blindly take it. And we're going to see if it works now. And it actually put some groupings and stuff for us. So it found a couple links. But I can tell you on my webpage, I certainly have more than that for links. So it's not perfect. But you can see that what it was doing instead of the original one was pulling out the href and the link text itself. So basically, it was just pulling out links to my YouTube channel. Great. By the way, I have a YouTube channel. But the point is, with all of this, is that you can use it to speed up coding. But as you might have seen or noticed, if I was someone that was very comfortable writing regular expressions, or I knew a quick way to do this, I might have just spent like 5 times the amount of time and effort trying to get it to do something. And this is because it's not going to be perfect. So this is one of the reminders in the newsletter I repeat over and over and over, which is feel free to use this stuff to kickstart ideas or do very mundane tasks. But regardless, always check the output. You need to always be validating this stuff. So if you said like, hey, I don't know anything about regular expressions, but it happened to find a couple, it's probably good. I would say like, hey, like go write tests on this thing, right? Go prove that it works and does what you need, right? Because if it doesn't, now you can actually go back to ChatGPT and give it the test cases and say, hey, this isn't working. Here's a test case. And you can get it to refine it and you can keep running your tests. And maybe that's a good strategy for you. Regular expressions suck in the first place. They're a nightmare to use, but hopefully you get my point here. Just don't blindly trust what it's saying. I wanted to show a refactoring example, and I don't know, without Copilot chat, it's going to be kind of crappy because I wanted to be able to do, as it was said in the chat, I can usually right click on here and prompt directly in here and say, go rewrite this and do something else instead. So maybe what I'll do, I'll bring this back over and I'll actually tell it, instead of using we'll see what it writes. So I'll read it out, but instead of using a regular expression, find a more optimal way to find the URLs. Now you can see that this is a completely different approach. Instead of using a regular expression and basically just treating the whole text as raw text and looking for patterns, it's actually going to say, go parse this thing. And we're going to go through and find all the href nodes. And it's using HTML agility pack. So it probably, yep, there it is, explains what it is. So maybe just to try it out, and we'll leave this example. All right, go back to the code. I don't have HTML agility pack. We'll install it. There we go. Extra curly brace. The dreaded extra curly brace. Okay, so as predicted, there are a lot more URLs on my homepage. Right, so the point here is that we've asked it to do basically the same thing. We just said we still want the links, just go use a different technique. And it gave us a completely different result. So you do need to go validate whatever LLMs are spitting out at you. Yeah, so in the chat here, so hey Nick, in your news, this is where I'm going with this next. In your newsletter, you mentioned not to paste company secrets into LLMs. Can you explain a bit more about what you mean by that? If you're using Copilot, you don't really have control over data, which is passed to LLM because it used data from the open tabs. Also, there's a limit here in YouTube chat for characters. Oh, yeah, that's okay. Thanks, Lucas. Yeah, so I want to talk about this part next. I'm going to go back to the full camera, so apologies because I disappear temporarily when this happens, and then I will come right back as promised. Okay, yeah, so the next part of the newsletter, before I get over to rubber ducking to wrap things up, we're going to wrap it up with rubber ducks. When you're using LLMs, and this isn't, I should preface this too, this is not unique to LLMs. It's just much more pervasive now that we have LLMs that are basically like, give us the answers. If you're using, so it's a little bit different for me at Microsoft. I'm not going to go use ChatGPT, but I have Copilot at work. It's built into everything we use. So I'm going to be using Copilot at work because it's built into our tooling. If you are, I'm going to use ChatGPT as an example here. So unless you're working at OpenAI, when you're taking stuff that is private to your company, right? Your source code, internal documents, anything that is intellectual property about where you're working, and you take that, you copy it, and you paste it into any external tool. I don't care if it's an LLM. Any external tool, you don't want to do that. Because now you have to have full trust. Your company has to have full trust with wherever that data is going. And how are you going to guarantee that? Because you probably can't. So don't do it. And that's going to be the same thing for ChatGPT, right? Like I said, with LLMs and stuff, it's a lot more pervasive just because it's so accessible to us. And those things give us answers. So you're like, hey, I got this code. It's company code. I want to rewrite it. I want to convert it to a different language. That would be a cool experiment. We should have said, hey, go rewrite this C# code in JavaScript, right? Like, you can go do all of that stuff with an LLM and it's super powerful. But when you're taking intellectual property from outside of your company and putting it into other tools, you don't want to do that. And I'm not saying it's because ChatGPT is malicious or some other LLM, some other company is malicious. It's not about being malicious. When you're taking intellectual property from inside a boundary and putting it somewhere else, no bueno. Don't do it. Find a different way. And there are techniques you can do, but it's going to take more work on your side. So for example, with the regex thing we were doing, let's pretend that was proprietary code that I had taken out of the code base and pasted it right into ChatGPT. Instead of doing that, I could say, hey, ChatGPT, I have code, like you describe it. I have code that uses a regular expression to go find links. Could you go rewrite this for me, right? You find a way to describe it that has nothing to do with intellectual property. I think that's critical. But you have to do that with anything that you want to be able to transform to put into something like ChatGPT or any external tool. So the other thing to mention, though, is I want to go to Lucas's question more specifically, right? If you're using Copilot, you don't really have control over data, which is passed to the LLM because it used data from the open tabs. So the point that I want to get across here is that, like, if we're going to refer to your organization, you don't get to, as an individual, unless it's your company, you as an individual don't get to make a decision about what's okay to go out into different tools and stuff like that. It's generally like a, company policy, security, compliance, anything like that. People are going to have to make decisions about that. And if your company has said, hey, look, we want to allow Copilot, we're okay with that. We understand the implications of that. And again, you pick Copilot, pick any tool. It doesn't matter. We're talking about LLMs here. Copilot's a good example. Maybe even they say, like, we're okay if you use ChatGPT. My point is that you want someone at the organization level to say, that has the authority to do this, this is okay with our standards. But until someone signs off on something like that, you want to assume it's not okay. You don't want to do it. So, Lucas, to your point, like, yeah, you don't get to control what's sent over. So basically, if someone in your organization did not approve use of Copilot, don't use it. Right? We have even, I don't have the list, but even at Microsoft, a couple weeks ago, on our team, we were talking, I can't remember what the tools were. Sorry, this is a terrible example, but it's relevant. We were talking about like tools like PDF viewers and stuff like that. And we were saying, like, hold on, like, I can't remember what the program was, but like, is this actually an approved program that we can go use? And outside of work, whatever the program was, it's like, yeah, we use this kind of thing all the time. But like, is it approved for us to use? It's a genuine question, because now we have to start understanding how our internal data can be handled by these tools. So that's really the point. So Lucas, I don't know. I don't want to feel like I'm glossing over what you're asking. So if you would like me to try and explain that in a different way, I'm happy to try and do so. But the point was sort of general, right? It's not, here's how you sneak around it or anything like that. It's more about, sorry, I was waiting to see if Lucas was going to respond, but Sergio had a great comment here. For this reason, and this is a wise prompt engineering technique. For this reason, at the end of my prompt, I always say, shh, this is a secret. That's right. You let the LLM know that it's a secret, and then that way it keeps hush-hush about your data. That's awesome, Sergio. Yeah, so the two, like, do not do these things from my article that I wrote about was, one, blindly trusting data or output, right? You don't want to do that. Number one, because it's probably wrong. That's okay, because it gives you a really good starting point. The second part to that, though, is especially if you are learning, right? I think it's such a cool time. I know the job market's very challenging, but it's such a cool time to become a software engineer right now, because these types of tools that can go generate code and stuff like that, explain things to you, this is so wild to me. It's such a cool, powerful thing. But the danger is if you just take what it says and just trust it, and you don't do anything else beyond that. Hey, ChatGPT, go build me a whole website. Here you go. Like, you're getting things done, but you're not necessarily learning how things work to be able to do them for yourself to be more productive. And when ChatGPT gives you something that you don't understand or it's not working, you've not built up the skills to go understand it further. So I'm not telling you to not use it for your development or use AI for your development. I'm just saying that you want to spend the time understanding what it's outputting. So that's one thing do not do. The second part was about the company intellectual property. Don't go doing that. Okay, the last part, and by the way, usually I wrap up at around 10:30 my time, so in about 10 more minutes. But if folks have questions, I'm happy to stay on and just answer questions, whether it's about AI and software development, C#, programming in general, software engineering in general. Please, by all means, jump in if you have questions. But I'll wrap up with this idea about rubber ducking. And I love saying it because for people that haven't heard it before, they are probably still going, dude, what the heck is rubber ducking? Thank you, Pepsi. Okay, rubber ducking. You might not have heard the phrase, but I can almost guarantee that you've done this before. Can you think of a time where you were stuck on a problem and you're like, okay, it's time. I have to go ask for help on this. I have to. I'm so stuck. I just don't know. And you finally build up the courage. You're like, I'm going to go talk to Joe on the team about this, or Sally, whoever. I'm going to go talk to them. And you walk up and you go, okay, Joe, sorry to bother you, but do you have a few minutes? I got a problem. And Joe's like, yeah, sure, I'm happy to help. And you go, okay. So, and you get about 5 words into describing it, and you go, oh, yeah, I figured it out. And Joe's looking at you like, and you go, thanks, Joe. I'm going to go back to my desk. I figured it out. Thank you. And basically, Joe solved your problem by doing absolutely nothing. And it's fascinating because you were able to solve your problem literally just by explaining what the problem is. And most of the time, we don't even get through the whole thing, and it just clicks out of nowhere. So, Xcoding in the chat saying, ask the rubber ducky, Joe is the rubber ducky. And that's exactly it. So the idea, I don't know what this phenomenon is called outside of this context. So anyone who's into psychology or anything like that, there's probably a good phenomenon or a name for this phenomenon, but I feel like it has something to do with when you are explaining something, you basically are reevaluating what the problem is through a different pathway in your brain. And by doing that, because now you have to think, how can I explain this to Joe? So you literally have to think about it a different way. And just by doing that, it's a way that you haven't thought of before. And it guides you through, and you happen to find a different path and come to a solution. I'm not a scientist, but I think something like that's happening. But it's a real thing that happens. So where the rubber duck situation comes into play is you get a little rubber duck, or you can use any figurine or something else to put on your desk. It could even be a Pepsi. So you can go put a Pepsi, anything you want, on your desk, and when you're stuck on problems, you look at that thing and you talk to it. And it seems ridiculous. Seems ridiculous, but how ridiculous was it that Joe could solve your problem without doing anything? Right? It just gives you an opportunity to talk to something, and you end up solving problems by doing it. So Xcoding saying the concept occurs in other fields as well where logic is applied. Yeah, I can imagine so. Like, I've been stuck in programming for a long time, but I could absolutely imagine if you were in any industry and you were stuck on something, right? You're stuck on something, you've been thinking about it, you can't solve it. And as soon as you go explain it to someone to ask for help, you know, this doesn't happen all of the time, obviously, but it happens a significant amount of times, enough that there's this concept of rubber ducking. So that's rubber ducking. It is a real thing. How does ChatGPT work? Right? So Xcoding, I just see the person and it clicks. Yes. Basically, if you use a person as a rubber duck enough, sometimes in your head, you're like, I'm looking at Joe, I'm mentally preparing what I want to say to Joe, and that's enough, right? You think about what you want to go say, and that's enough of a different pathway in your brain that you come up with a solution. Actually, funny story about this. I had an intern 6 years ago or something like that, and very new to programming. In the beginning of her internship, I'm not saying this to speak poorly of her because she did excellent by the end of her internship. The beginning of her internship, I could tell that she wasn't diving into problem solving as a first step. She would get stuck and basically ask for help. It's exactly what I said earlier, right? Ask for help, and if someone gave her help right away, then she knew that she could just ask for help. And I remember working with her mentor and saying, hey, look, like, this is a pattern that's coming up. And he was like, yeah, I observe it too. And I said, I think we have to do a little bit of a change here. So instead of us kind of moving her along, let's just actively say, like out loud, we'll say to her, what have you tried so far? It's a very simple cue that you can use. And so any level of software engineer that you are, right, if you are working with other people that come to you and ask for help, This is a super easy cue that you can use in your conversations. It's not dismissive, and it actually helps train people. And I'll explain this. So you say to someone who's asking for help, well, what have you tried so far? Very simple. And if they've tried nothing, you can either say, oh, do I need to clarify something for you? Like maybe it's something you didn't understand and that's why you can't make progress. That's fine. Clarification, I think, is a good opportunity to just kind of jump into answering things. But if it's not, they're like, no, I understand. I don't know what to do. I would say, well, go try something. And in this particular case with this individual, what had happened was after a few times of doing this, this was still in the office. I can remember her turning in her desk and she would like, as soon as we made eye contact, it's not like she was turning away in fear, but she was like, oh, like, okay, I know. Because she was basically training herself that she had to come up with what she tried so far, and she hadn't. And she would go do it. And by the time that she had tried things, by the end of her internship and she was in the groove of this, she had tried things. And she was basically rubber ducking by making eye contact and going, that's what I want to say to Nick. I think I know what to do. And it happened all of the time towards the end of her internship. And it was really funny to watch because you could literally watch like all the gears turn on at the same time and she'd solve problems. So it's a super cool thing. Oh, wow. Hey, Peter, good to see you on. It's great that you made it. So that's the idea with rubber ducking. And how does AI come into play here? Well, one of the downfalls with rubber ducking is that if the rubber duck doesn't work right away for you, you can keep talking at it. But as you might expect, the rubber duck never says anything back unless you have a very special rubber duck, in which case you might want to get that checked out. But the rubber duck doesn't say anything back, so sometimes inevitably you get stuck. But if you have an LLM, the really cool thing that you can do is you can basically have the conversation with the LLM. Again, don't want to put company IP into the LLM. This might be a good opportunity, even if you're thinking about it in a more abstract sense. You might even solve your problem doing that. But basically, you describe your situation to the LLM, use it as a rubber duck, and it's going to say things back to you. So instead of you getting stuck there, even after rubber ducking, it might give you some other things to think about, and you can keep going back and forth and just having a conversation. Because when you're trying to problem solve, like truly, you're trying to arrive at an answer, of course, but how you get to your answer, I would say a lot of the time, is just as important as the answer itself. And you might say, well, Nick, I disagree with that. If I just had the answer, I wouldn't be wasting time. True. True statement. But if you're understanding how you're getting to that answer, the next time you have similar problems, you will be faster at solving those problems with repetition, right? So I do think that it's very valuable to build up the skill of how you navigate and get to the answer and not just find the answer. And I think that you can leverage LLMs in a way that is superior to just rubber ducking if you experiment with this. So those were the topics. So we saw some beginner project ideas, right? So you can ask an LLM for some help. Here's what I'm trying to achieve. Remember, the goal is learning. So here's the things I'm trying to achieve, whether it's web tech, if it's games, if it's mobile servers, anything you want. Give it some context. Ask if you don't know what language you want to use. Say, hey, what would you recommend? By the way, there isn't a right or wrong answer. The point is that it's going to set you off in some direction to get started, and you can ask for a little bit of guidance. So it's no different than when people come to me, they'll send me a DM and they'll say, hey, Nick, I'm just getting started. What's the best programming language to use? It's obviously C#. No, I'm just kidding. But, like, what's the best one to use? And I'm like, for what? But people don't even know that yet. Like, it's just a tool, right? They're looking for shortcuts. Oh, Nick, you said I have to go build projects, but I don't know what tech stack to use. I'm like, I don't either. I don't know what tech stack you want to go use. I can't just, I can go tell you things, but there's no value in that. Because I don't know what you're trying to achieve, right? Do you want to go learn a tech stack just because? Okay, pick any of them. Do you want to pick them because certain types of employers are looking for them? Okay, well, I mean, go do the research and you can find that out. So it's like it seems kind of silly, but you can go ask an LLM all the same things that you DM me. I just have different human experiences than the LLM. So we can ask LLMs for project ideas. We can look at refactoring. We can look at generating code. In both of those cases, we don't want to blindly trust what's being spat out by them. You do need to understand what's going on. And then one of the last things we talked about was rubber ducking as well. So a whole bunch of different stuff you can do. I think that if you are experimenting with these things, trying them out, if you're not able to use LLMs and stuff like that at work because of different policies and things like that, in your side projects and different opportunities, I would say try it. Like in my own personal projects, I don't care if an LLM is going to learn based on my code. Sorry for sorry for the people that get the train data for my code. But like I don't have secrets in there. It's I don't care. Take it. But that's a decision I'm comfortable with, so whatever. But I would recommend if you are comfortable with this sort of thing, try it out, because if you completely avoid everything that's AI, this is personally something I feel like you will probably have regrets about that later, because you'll be seeing everyone else using it. You'll be seeing it become built into a lot of productivity workflows. And if you're kind of resisting that it's happening, this is where you might find that some of your skill sets and the processes and things you're doing are becoming obsolete, or at least less effective. So that's it on the LLMs. You're welcome, Yuri. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate that. I'm happy to take questions. So I'll wait a few more minutes to take questions. Generally what I do at this point in time, because it's the end-ish, unless you have questions, I just talk about courses and stuff I have, because I don't like pitching things. I feel kind of gross having to be salesy, but oh no, where's my face? Come back. There I am. But I do have courses for sale. They are on C#. So if you aren't aware, I do have courses on Dome Train. I currently have 3. I'm about to go start on the 4th one, and there is a 5th one after that. Both of those other 2 should be out by the end of this year pretty easily. I'm hoping the next one is within a couple months. But these 2, getting started in Deep Dive, there's a bundle where you can get these discounted together. If you've never programmed ever before, the Getting Started in C# one takes you through basically never having coded and getting up and running, having some basic programs in C#. The Deep Dive builds on that. These together are 11.5 hours of course material. I never promise that people become experts after taking any course, because it's impossible. You don't get expertise or build mastery unless you're practicing. So in all 3 of my courses, one of the very first things I say is code alongside me. And if you code alongside me, and that's only 11.5 hours, you're still going to need more hours to become an expert. So I do think that this will set you off in the right direction. I think that you'll be able to build basic applications after these 2, but expertise will take time, so I don't want to set you up with false expectations. No one can do that. Sorry. The refactoring one is something that I'm pretty passionate about. I've spent a lot of time in startups. Only 4 years now in big tech, but I spent enough time in startups where the code I wrote became the legacy code, which is a gross feeling, but that's life. We spent a lot of time in legacy code, so a lot of time having to refactor legacy code. When you're rapidly growing as a startup and your code base is rapidly changing because of customer requirements and things like that, you're going to have a lot of stuff where you're like, this is working, but it's got to change. How do we keep it alive? So refactoring is something I spent a long time doing. So I tried to pour that knowledge into this refactoring course, but I do have these 3 available right now. Like I said, 2 more on the way, possibly even a 3rd, but I'm talking to Nick Chapsis about how we would structure that one. So stay tuned for that. Checking out Peter's comments here. So yeah, LLM are very good with talking about big ideas and stuff. The problem starts for me when I need more specific knowledge. I do agree, yep. Like I spent last week talking with GPT about render elements. Yeah. And especially the newer things, right? Newer things become more challenging. Let me go back to my full camera. I won't try to pester you guys with my courses. Here I am. So yeah, newer things can be like, it's not trained on some of that stuff. So it doesn't have the knowledge to be able to just share that with you. So sometimes it's challenging. So using plugin architecture was I'm not going to say that word, Peter. It's a pain in the butt. So awesome. Yeah. So yeah, you're welcome for the videos. Hopefully they help. But yeah, I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but I'm hoping the courses help with that kind of stuff too in the future. But we'll see. Yeah, let me know, folks, if you have any other questions. I don't think I see any more across any of the chats I have pulled up. TikTok's trying to end me. They said there's no activity. Guess I didn't have enough people join me on TikTok. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks, folks. I do appreciate you tuning in. I will be doing another one of these next Monday, same time. And I am trying to do some live streams coding during the week. So if you haven't subscribed, whether it's on Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you're watching this, I would say if you enjoy this kind of thing and or you want to see live coding, do follow along and hopefully you can see when I go live. I haven't planned out the live coding sessions like I have this recurring Monday one. So it's a little bit more hit and miss, but I try to get on live and code when I'm putting YouTube videos together. I found that's been a pretty good strategy. Like, I got to spend the time in the IDE anyway, building educational content. I might as well have people kind of go alongside me. So, all right, folks, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.